Welcome to the Sabbath afternoon seminar sessions of Virtual Camp Meeting 2021. Today's speaker in this session is a retired teacher named Barry Buchanan. I found out that Barry, who happens to have a degree in finances, and he worked for CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, a number of years ago. He even worked in the Treasury Department of the BC Conference. I asked him the question, Barry, if you were to deal with finances, but from a Christian perspective, what would you say? What would you teach? And so Barry came up with some really interesting things. So please give a listen to Mr. Barry Buchanan. And I'm going to pray before we begin. So let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for bringing us to the Sabbath afternoon. Lord, help us to put on our thinking caps as we listen to Barry Buchanan talk about the goals and principles of being a Christian and dealing with finances as well. Bless him, Lord, as he speaks and as we hear. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Welcome to our finance seminar here that we're presenting from Camp Hope, British Columbia. Today we're going to follow one of the nicest hikes at our camp, the hike to Third Ledge, as a video metaphor for the financial hike that we are all making in our life. This seminar will discuss reaching our financial goals with a biblical perspective. All over the next 50 minutes, here we're going to be taking a look. I hope to give you some useful pointers on financial journey that you and I are on by reviewing our budget, paring down debt, or reevaluating our finances. This video is a real hike with real falls, so I hope you don't mind the real flaws and fingers and so on that will appear. This seminar is not a sermon or a Bible study, but as believers we know that there are over 2,300 references in the Bible on money and wealth and possessions, and 16 of Jesus' parables deal with finances. So although the Bible is not a financial textbook, nor is it about health or relationships, it does touch on all those important aspects of our lives. As we know from Mark 8, verses 35 and 36, what is the value if we gain the whole world and lose our own soul? So we want to keep in perspective the importance that God has within our lives. We will follow basically a plan that many people have followed in carrying out a quest to get to an objective. We need to prepare and plan what we're going to do, and for finances we need to budget and save and invest. Just like on our hike to Third Ledge, we'll follow a trail that's been blazed by many others before us. You should consider how we'll be implementing this process, and it can affect how you change a job or use your credit situation, starting a business or buying a house, any of those major financial concerns. We want to base our principles on solid foundations that God gives us in His Word, and we know that we may need to modify the specifics that we're in because we need to meet obstacles that come along on our way. So maybe after you've seen this video, you want to reflect on this illustration of a hike on a trail and our financial hike. I want to encourage you that if this does not resonate strongly with you, reflect back on this video and think of a better a more familiar process that will be meaningful as an illustration for you, like making a recipe or woodworking or planning a vacation. Anything to get the point across to use in your real life as a comparison that is meaningful to you, so that you can personalize your analogy to the financial process. Make it your own. So like the trail to Third Ledge, we'll follow a process of planning and preparing, budgeting, saving, and investing for our financial goal. Along the way, we will touch on aspects of debt and taxes and portfolios and other financial literacy items. So let's just look just like a lot of the great scenes that there will be to look at on our path towards Third Ledge. We don't want to get too hung up on any of these particular points. Just like you wouldn't stop your hike for just one scene or obstacle, we'd work around it in problem solving. By following a trail that many others have completed, you'll know that it's possible. You can make your way up the mountain, like in this scene, where there is no trail, but it is more difficult, but it could be more rewarding, just like giving up your job or starting a business or downsizing to solidify your finances. We are going to use third ledge as a goal. You should have a firm financial goal in mind, like retirement or reducing your debt. Then we need to see that we're ready for this excursion. So you need to take an honest look at where you are, how you got there, what you have, and how you will get forward from where you are. So planning and preparing are really important. So just like on any hike, you would take a look at, okay, what are our objectives? Like this beautiful shot of Mount Chim. It's a good objective to look to. We're not climbing to there, not that far, but on our hike, we do have an objective. We do want to have a view of where we can go to. And in those situations, in our particular climb in our hike, it's been well traveled. It's a moderate climb of a half an hour to an hour in length, has some steep parts, just like our path to retirement or to buying a house. Everyone will follow it, will have different choices and circumstances. So financially, for us, over the next 30 or 40 years, in order to reach a good retirement, financially at least, and hopefully with the Lord, it will take effort, and we'll have some hazards which all people will have to face from time to time. So we need to, just like we would prepare for a hike and making sure we have good footwear, probably a cell phone, clothing that's appropriate to the weather, and to have a partner that has maybe been on the path, and we should allow enough time. Financially, we need to prepare for decades of retirement. So there is a large task to prepare for. We have some immediate things that we can confront, but we will find storms and difficulties along the way, like this storm that is brewing over the ABC. In those situations, as we look to prepare on our hike, our plans should have goals or a series of goals that will lead us eventually to retirement. So life does happen. Businesses happen, jobs change, careers develop, marriages, kids, houses, and on and on. Preparation of at least tentative plans and adjusting those as you go through the process of the climb or the financial climb will allow you to get closer to retirement. So remember, with these different weather situations that can happen on a climb and the slope changes, so the needs for prepare for changes and obstacles will happen on our financial and life, and being able to respond to those is financial resilience. To help you with that, we should have an immediate plan, or you should, in order to have an emergency or rainy day fund. You could start with $500 or $1,000 as a saving goal. And ideally, you would continue to increase that over time so you can get to perhaps 3 to 6 months of basic household expenses that are saved and can provided for as necessary. That will help smooth the path and make it easier for you, just like it says in Proverbs 3, 5 and 6. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will smooth the path before you. So it's important that we should save. So how you do it and how much, that really is dictated by having a budget. And that prepares a path for us at a stage that may need to be altered or alter our goal as we consider our plans and what we can do. A budget is what is your income and what are your expenses. In other words, your outgo. Your spending should be less than your income. Or else you'll have a deficit, and that's known as debt. And unlike our governments, you are not able to continually take on more debt. And we'll talk more about that later. That leads to insolvency issues, where you have large balances on credit cards, your credit rating may fall, and collection agencies may be in contact with you. You want to smooth out those places so you will have more choices and leeway to decide how you want to continue on this path up the mountain. We'll specifically on debt a little later. A basic budget or an income statement, maybe an accounting forms, how the use of your money, your cash flow happens. You don't need to be an accountant. You really just need to use elementary math so you have an idea of where you're at in your finances. There are many sources to find different forms that can be listed to record your income and expenses for a period. They could be just listed on a piece of paper. You need to remember that God's work is significant and important. Remembering His tithes and offerings are part of your plan. And so when you consider expenses, like for accommodation and utilities and food, you should also allow as to your outgo amounts to support God's work. You should have money left after your monthly expenses so you can prepare for future expenses. So you have a chance to keep the view in mind of where the high vistas you want to go to. This is one from First Outlook. Along the way, you want to prepare for your expenses for other larger expenses that will come. Insurance, taxes, presents, vacations, down payments, emergencies. They all are going to happen. So be proactive. Develop a budget that you can handle and keep track of. Pencil and paper will do fine. You could use a computer spreadsheet like Excel. That would help. Also, with your knowledge, if you know in some computer packages, you could use a small business package like QuickBooks. Accountants might like that. But only do it if you're going to use it. So keep it something simple that you're going to use on a regular basis, perhaps every pay period or each month review to see how you're doing. How much you do and how often takes time and effort. But if you don't maintain a basic budget, then it's kind of like getting lost on a trail. You know the trail was there at one point, but you don't pay attention and you go off of it. You will end up without following a budget in places that if you're not paying attention and a place you really don't want to be. A basic budget should also make you reflect on your plans and your preparations. Like our hike, are you willing to spend the time and effort to make the climb and enjoy the process of it, the experience of climbing and wonderful vistas? That will appear along the way. A budget is one way to alert you to a need to change your inputs to your financial equation, where your income minus expenses leaves your savings or your equity that you're developing, the wealth that you can develop. So maybe increasing income by an additional job or a side job, by contracts, by changing career, or even getting more education or Pro-D, like getting a master's or a journeyman papers. Decreasing expenses, changing accommodation, sharing accommodation, shopping habits change, use coupons. Take a look at expenses you have for the cost of smartphones or internet use or entertainment package. We also need to, along the way, budget to be faithfully giving. If we will commit to God, our situation in finances, like every aspect of our life, God will work with you on that path, and He will guide you where He wants you to go. And with planning, we can have savings, and savings should be budgeted in your plans for your use of that money to allow you to develop an emergency fund, to get down payments, make sure you shed all of your debt, and you prepare for retirement. And oh yes, I did say the word debt. Well, debt is something like a storm cloud on the horizon. It can be like a millstone around your neck. Proverbs 22:7 tells us that a borrower is a servant to the lender, kind of like a slave. You don't want to be a slave to debt. If you find debt can be useful, for example, credit cards that are paid off monthly, it's useful and convenient. But if you're carrying credit card balances with interest rates of 18% or more, or you are needing to get payday loans in order to get by, those are huge red flags that you need to change your habits. A workable budget is key to limiting expenses and shedding debt. No amount of financial planning or advice can overcome the weight of debt if a budget is not maintained. If you or someone you know is in this situation, additional help could be needed. But if you have a debt burden around you, You cannot have the kind of rest you should experience day by day in your life with Jesus if this debt is overhanging you. So it is going to affect your spiritual as well as financial life. So credit counseling and insolvent trustees can help with those debts, but they're really an emergency step. The greatest majority of people with large debts are not insolvent, but they need to recognize debt is only temporarily useful and convenient. It can become a quagmire that undermines all of our financial and personal plans. It can be somewhat daunting as we look at it if you're just to try and climb up straight a rock cliff. So we need to seek God's wisdom. James 1:5 tells us what the source is with God and that he wants the best for us. He wants you to have an abundant life from John 10:10. So we need to bring those plans, our personal and financial plans, to God to know the best. We need to stop increasing debt. We need to limit the use of credit cards as allowed by a workable budget, and decrease our indebtedness. We need to revamp our spending habits, maybe just go on a cash budget for a while, sell some possessions, have a yard sale, whatever you need to do, pay off those debts. Start with the highest interest rate outstanding amounts first, where they have the highest interest rate. Perhaps a consolidation loan will help you pay off a number of creditors. I know it is incurring a different form of debt, but if it lets you get a lower interest rate on those debts, it will take longer to pay off, but it's going to take some time, some serious amount of time to pay off significant debts based upon your income. Homeowners, if it's smaller amounts, might look to a secured line of credit for their home equity. Still, it's debt. Your goal overall is to eliminate that debt load so that you can increase your actual savings and investment. Certainly, a mortgage on a principal residence is a debt, but for most people, it is something that we need to incur in order to secure that housing. And over time, it has been shown that purchasing a house has been a strong factor in increasing the wealth of Canadians. Under Canadian tax law, your principal residence is not subject to capital gains tax when it is sold. So it's an important way to increase your wealth. So as we get along on our realistic budget, you have a good start to reaching, in our case, third ledge, to reaching towards your goals of financial retirement or increasing your wealth at least over time, so you have more options. So think of budgeting your goals. Think of the big journey. It's like retirement. It's a big process. It may be far away, like a mountain peak, but that third ledge is on. But you're going to be faced with the task. And like we are coming up to, I'm afraid, pretty soon, on our hike, we're going to have stumbles and difficulties. It's really how you're going to realistically try and reset those goals, like fingers in the screen on us here. Really, how do you respond on those things? Adjusting to that realistically will help you keep on the path to where you're going. So we really want to head toward investing and using our savings so it'll increase over time. We can help us reach our goals. We're going to have setbacks like this, and maybe we'll move on with my difficulties here, and Carl will do better as he climbs. This will increase our net worth by investing. So that's where you want to be focusing on, not just putting out brush fires of emergencies and debts that are occurring, but you want to plan for the future. Have your money working for you. This will increase your net worth, your assets of what you own less what you owe. That's your net worth. So a balance sheet or net worth in accounting firms will show you where you are at a point in time, where you're climbing on, what is a useful gauge of how you're progressing to reach your financial goals. Your balance sheet or net worth in your hike is a comparison. It shows your location and relatively how far you have gone on your trip. Your income statement or your cash flow is a good indicator for how you are doing and actually progressing on your hike. Are you walking? Are you crawling? All of that is really good feedback so you know where you are in your process, and you can then review your goals and reassess. Always something that's important. So we've come to the point where we want to be actually saving funds and progressing on our path. Along that way, all investors should have a plan to fund contributions to government-regulated tax-advantaged savings and retirement programs. In Canada, your Rrsps, Registered Retirement Savings Plans, have been around since 1957, and they're intended for retirement savings. Currently, the regulations allow you up to 18% of your earned income. That basically means employment and commissions, but not investment income. So 18% of earned income, less any registered pension plan contributions that you make. And if you do have a registered plan in conjunction with work, you should be funding that as best as you can. Often employers will also make contributions to help you with that. After your deductions from your or a pension adjustment for your registered contributions, you should contribute as much as you're able to do. Your contributions to your RRSP will reduce your taxable income. It doesn't keep you from tax, but it delays paying that tax until you actually withdraw funds from your RRSP. There's also an annual limit as to how much you can contribute. So it's either 18% of earned income, or currently, I believe the maximum is $27,830. So at about 18%, you're looking about $154,000 as your taxable income. So for most of us, that is an area that provides us a way of finding a path along for investment, giving us a tax break as we contribute, and also allows us to keep it tax sheltered until we need it down the line. We'll look at other aspects in a minute. We also have a tax-free savings account, Tfsa, and that was started for Canadians as of January 1st, 2009. And so anyone who's 18 or over can contribute currently up to $6,000 per year. This is in after-tax dollars, and there is no deduction from your taxable income, but any income or capital gains that you make for where your Tfsa is invested accrues to your account without being taxed. Woohoo! That means your wealth is accumulating without taxes. What a deal. And that will strongly strengthen your development, the compounding of making money on money without paying taxes. It'll add to itself. So a Tfsa is very beneficial in that manner. Now, both RRSPs and Tfsas allow for you carrying forward amounts that you are able to fund in any one particular year. So you carry forward that contribution limit to future years, and it builds up for you. For your RRSP, you will receive a notice assessment from the Canadian Revenue Agency each year, and because it involves taxable income with your deductions, your notice of assessment will show you your RRSP contribution limit, and that's useful for planning down the road when you may have more funds to invest and then shelter within your RRSP. If you put more money in an RSP, you get a reduced tax bill and a bigger refund. By investing, your refund or windfalls, inheritances, or any other amounts that you may get through the year, that will strongly increase your ability to develop your wealth. Also, it's important what your Tfsas and your RRSPs are invested in, and we'll look at investing in a few minutes, but it's important that you see that these funds are not entirely unavailable to you if you have needs through the time as you continue the years of saving and working to retirement. At Tfsa, you can withdraw amounts at a time. You don't increase your taxes, but it does allow you to add that amount back into your contribution limit. So you may withdraw this year, next year that contribution limit will add back in, and so you can develop quite an amount that you might be able to contribute in the future. With an RSP, if you actually withdraw amounts from the RSP, you lose that contribution limit. So it's important in dealing with your RSP. RSPs can be used for a first-time home buyer's plan where you can withdraw up to $35,000 to help perhaps with a down payment, I guess. And with lifelong learning, you can withdraw, basically make a loan to yourself to use for full-time education. It is important to allow for these types of adjustments so that you can continue on your path. But if you were to contribute the maximums for your RSPs and TFSAs, let's say you had $60,000 worth of taxable income, you would be saving well beyond the parameters of most, of all, if not all, financial writers like David Chilton and the Wealthy Barber use 10%. Other people may have larger amounts, but if you used your maximum limits at $60,000 in taxable income, you would be saving something like 28% of your income. So that's high, but still, it is something that can be very beneficial for you developing. And it's important to start early on your savings. An example would be if you save $500 per month starting at age 30 and got a real return of 4% through until 65, you would have more than $450,000 in investments. If you started 5 years later, $500 per month, starting at age 35, returning 4% a year, going to 65, you would have just over $340,000 in your investments. So about $100,000 less. So starting early can be important because it compounds over time. You can look at, we'll look at investments. Important to use different types of portfolios and ways that you can increase your return from those. Contribute regularly. One other change, a TFSA will last through your lifetime, so you can keep that continually and use it and have funds going in and out. For an RSP, you will lose contribution limit if you withdraw amounts, actual withdrawal amounts from an RSP. You also need to convert in the year in which you turn 71. You need to convert those funds in the RSP to an annuity or a registered retirement income fund. So there is a limit as to it, and you have to start taking funds out through one of those sources. You also might want to consider a spousal RRSP in order to reduce taxes and basically split income with your spouse. It's important that you shouldn't be looking at these type of savings plans if you're burdened with debt. Pay the debt off. Make sure you refund anything you've taken from emergency funds along the way. But it does very much depend on your financial growth, being able to use those funds in your RSPs and TFSA, that they're invested well to give you a return. Two other points I want to mention here is if you, especially if you have dependents, you should have life insurance to cover in case of some accident or tragedy. So low cost term insurance is probably best. There is full life policies that have a cash value and a investment portion. Investing through an insurance policy is not a good return or good plan. Use term insurance. Also, even if you don't have dependents, you should have a will. As soon as you have some economic stability, you should have a will that will allow you to decide how your finances are taken care of and finalized should you pass away. If you don't, the government will do that through probate and take a big slice out of your funds. So it's important to be a responsible steward and have a will. Last thing, parents and grandparents could contribute to a registered retirement, a registered educational savings plan, an RESP. Allows you to develop a fund for student or your children's post-secondary education. The real advantage, it doesn't give you a tax break like an RSP, but it does let you save, protects any growth of those through investment income or dividends and so on that will accrue to that fund. And also the government will match up to 20% or $500 per year. So you can get several $1,000s contributed by the government. So It's not free money, but at least it is contributing money that can help you along your path. So that's really important. So as we continue on here, we want to have a good outlook on what's developing. We want to be able to see where we're going to, like, wow, yes, we're making progress on this. Investing is the area that will really allow you to strengthen your financial position. By having your savings grow, you are really contributing strength to that. You can put your savings into financial instruments like savings accounts and GICs and money markets and bonds. The interest you will receive is really like rent that you get for someone else using your money. Now, you can put your savings into equities or real financial assets like ownership in companies and shares of companies, or other real assets like a house. In financial terms, stocks and mutual funds and exchange-traded funds, ETFs, and real estate and other real assets will allow you to grow your wealth significantly over time. Interest-earning instruments like GICs have a set return on your investment called the interest rate, and a term or length of time that will last until it matures and you get your principal back. Owning part of real assets most often happens through financially purchasing stock or shares in companies who have initially had an initial public offering where they have sold shares, and that money is used in the business for equipment and buildings and running that business for a profit. The shares or stock are then traded on a stock exchange, and if those companies are successful, then the price of those shares increase and you as the owner become wealthier. It's also possible for stocks, and many of them will provide some income to the owners of the stock by dividends. Dividends are really payments of the profits of the company after its own requirements for expenses and taxes and future capital needs have been met. You as an investor can receive interest from a debt security like a GIC or bond or your savings account, and you can receive also on the other comparison dividends by sharing in the profits and the capital gains through those equities or ownership. Mutual funds are ways of investing with a pool of investors that's run by a professional manager, where the pool buys stocks and bonds and securities of companies, and you receive units within that fund. If the fund is successful in purchasing good investments, then it increases. A specialized way, though, is through exchange-traded funds, ETFs, which are pools of investors where the units represent funds that are placed into an exchange of many different companies within different segments of the stock market or commodities or bond markets on large scales. As such, ETFs derive their value from not just individual companies, but from many companies working in different groups of business endeavors. Banks are in the financial area, car makers are in durable goods, miners are in resources. These are sectors or parts of the overall financial market. The exchange fund, ETF, then buys shares in many of those companies in the sector. So an exchange fund allows you to invest in many sectors of the economy. And that way it diversifies or spreads out your investments in many areas. That can be important to grow your investments over time, and allows you to focus on where you feel it's going to grow best. So let's bring our side trip back into looking at where we're going to investing to meet our goals. It's important for investing our savings into financial instruments that will increase our net worth. Savings accounts, GICs, and bonds are a secure way of investing, have a definite lifetime, but they provide a low rate of return. When inflation is allowed for, they guarantee really that you are losing your capital, in other words, what you've saved over time. When you add in the effect of inflation, For example, 2% inflation, which is the Bank of Canada current target, over a 10-year period will decrease your purchasing power by well over 22% in 10 years. So if you add in fees with inflation, the fees that you'd pay a financial advisor or for making any transactions and buying and selling securities, or to someone who's managing your financial assets, you are going to have significant costs that you have to overcome. So many people recognize the need of investing their savings in something that will give them a greater return, and that's where equities or ownership of units in companies or ongoing operations like shares, mutual funds, or exchange traded funds. You can manage your own investments. The difficulty with that is that you need to understand carefully the costs and the risks involved. A help to a person who is growing in their financial knowledge is to use a robo-advisor, which is basically a computerized process, a platform that guides the investing. So you put in the money, and the computer, based on algorithms, which are computer formulas and equations, calculate where the investments should be, and it monitors the market strictly on that. So it's a good way for you to invest. It will give you good feedback as you continue to climb on your path, but they don't give you any personal ongoing service. So at a certain point, you probably want to be able to talk to someone to discuss what's happening with your finances and grow in your knowledge. The draw for a robo-advisor is that they will charge you lower fees because they're not dealing with you directly. They're doing with a lot of people simply on their computer platform. So their fees are usually lower, like 1% versus 1.5%, 2% or more for managed funds, either in a financial advisor or in mutual funds or ETFs. The whole area of investing is a really fascinating area. It is strongly going to affect how well you develop and how strongly you develop your wealth. It will mean, however, that to understand investing, it will mean spending time and effort to educate yourself, but it can be very lucrative in its returns. For most people, having a real person to talk to at some point is very helpful to understanding how your investments are being, your savings are being invested within your investment portfolio. And that is a term for all of your investments together, either what you have with one advisor, and that's your portfolio with them, or your overall investment portfolio, including advisors and things that you may be doing on your own. So we should, though, overall, not invest in financial instruments that we don't understand. It's important that you be able to explain to your spouse or a close, discreet friend who wants the best for you, explain what your investments are so you understand them. All investments have a risk of loss as markets fluctuate and the economy changes over time, and past performance is no guarantee of future results. So you can run into falling around and looking in the bushes like we are now, so that you need to try and keep a perspective on that. So just like our hike will take time and effort, most people will spend 30 or 40 years in their working life. By investing to educate yourself, you will find that you're going to be able to know what your situation is more directly and respond to that and have financial resilience. You can go online, you can read books, you can take a course to broaden your familiarity and try different approaches investing that will increase your net worth over time. But a real key to all of this is getting good advice. A trusted mentor or a network of financially literate, gospel-believing contacts that are at arm's length to you. In other words, they don't have a financial interest in getting paid. by what's happening and what you're investing. So they are, out of their interest and their concern, talking with you. So they will provide a good balance for you in knowing what you should be happening with your finances. So in this way, you have financial advisors or areas that you will be paying for financial advice and work. Balance that with people who are not receiving anything in the monetary fund from you, so that you get a balance on your advice. And that's why you should have advisors and mentors who are not family and not being paid by you. One area to find some good advice on these areas of people who can help you is from your local financial regulator in British Columbia. The BC Securities Commission has a great source of information for you. And here I'd like to add maybe some advice that as you look around and are looking for directions on what's happening with your investments, many people, you should really seek knowledgeable believers who will tell you what you need to hear and not just what you want to hear. And a caution here is just because someone is a believer does not necessarily mean that they will always be giving you the best advice. They may sincerely mean it, but you should always consider whatever advice you get and balance it and evaluate that as to its realism. If it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is not true. And unfortunately, some people have trusted in people who they felt were believers and were Christians in their background and have been defrauded of significant amounts of money. So always look for transparency and always look to stay on the path, a path that makes sense to you so you can see where you're developing on it. However, having said that, we do need to consider that the saying that you get what you pay for. So paying for advice isn't cheap. You probably deal with a bank or a credit union where they have financial advisors now, and they'll assist you in starting your investment portfolio. If the amount of your investment portfolio, in other words, your total investments of investable funds that you can keep in those investments, is less than $250,000, probably a bank or financial institution is a great place to start and continue to some extent. As your portfolio increases, you'll probably be able to seek more advice and more input as you look at the returns from your investments. You will get more comprehensive but costly service called wealth management from advisors and financial institutions, where you'll have people who are specialized and trained in portfolio management, and they will tailor your investments to your needs and your requests that you have for income and for growth and for security in it. As they offer this assistance, they can, with wealth management, help you with services like taxes and insurance and business succession in trusts and estate planning. It won't be cheap, but as your amount of invested savings increases, the decision risk also increases of you losing on sales and purchases of securities. So it is important by having a financial advisor, someone who is paid directly by you. They will be able to give you some good advice that you should be able to know that your management of your finances are being taken care of. They should also be able to give you information as to what you're paying for that advice, and from that you should be able to calculate your management expense ratio, your MER. That's how much it costs you for their work they do. Most often the MER is expressed as a percentage of the value of your total amount invested with that advisor. So it can be kind of a steep jump if you run into those, like at this step. So you want to be able to see if you're progressing that your MER is often in a 1 to 2% range. To pay more should mean that you're either getting more services like tax, legal, or estate work, which you can select or use or not, or you are getting better returns for your money. That means that your portfolio has increased in size over time, like over a period of a year. So let's say if you pay 5% for your MER, but your return is 15%, well, you're better off than if you're paying a lower MER, like 1%, but your return is only 6%. So it's important to balance those and take a perspective look back at what things are costing you. By lowering your fees can increase your overall return over time. The balance on that is that if your advisors are giving you good advice and invest well, they will allow your wealth to increase at a greater extent. So it's important to look at each of these aspects so that you can get kind of an outlook of how close you're getting to your goals. It is important to remember, though, that the majority of financial research on the returns shown for financial advisors or programs, they do not outperform the market, the general equities or stock market, over a longer period of time, such as 5 or 10 years or more. So, since our journey is actually much longer than that, it is most reasonable to try and follow at least how the equities market is increasing in value, which historically has trended upwards over the long term. There may be reverses here and there, but it's been shown that you can, if you stay invested in the market, you can ride out those dips in the market as the market switches. It's often that you'll lose out on the returns in the market after a dip. So it's important to stay invested, and your financial advisor can give you more advice and directions on that. A point here on diversification, which is just not having all your eggs in one basket. Diversifying your portfolio with a mix of stocks and bonds or ETFs for you will lower your exposure to risk of either one company or industry or sector of the market. Having that right asset selection will also not only lower risk but also increase your return with a good selection. And this rebalancing of your portfolio is another service that you can run into and get help with, just like we can have falls like this. Unfortunately, that happens, and you can get advice to help you when those downfalls happen and get you back on track. The rebalancing of your portfolio is a service that your financial advisor or your robo-advisor can help you with. Exceptions have happened over time where people are not just trying to match with the market, but they have a particular approach to investing, like value investing that Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett have followed. There are other people with other philosophies of value investing and contrarians who will go against the current drift of the news and look for underlying values. For most people with strong knowledge of the market and how it works, they can take advantage of some of those things, and if they're your advisor, they can strongly help your returns. But for most of us, it is better to try and track, like the trail to third ledge, to follow on the path that we have on good investing, of savings, looking to have a plan for investing with reasonable advice that matches your time horizon, how long you're going to be invested, like 20 years until retirement, your risk level. You don't want to be up losing sleep at night because the market dropped today. You also want to have a proper asset selection so you can increase your returns and lower your risk. And you want to, on a regular basis, be contributing with regular additions from your savings so you will grow your investment portfolio. which would be comprised by moving savings into Tfsas and Rrsps and investment accounts, will let you grow your wealth over a long period of time. Your investment advisor should be able to give you what's called an IPS, which is an investment policy statement, which will outline the steps that they're taking to follow your guidance as to your parameters, your risk acceptance, what you want in returns, what you're comfortable with, so that they're matching their investing of your funds with your concerns, so that they know you with the investments. So we're now at a point of looking at the summer of 2021, and just some points on economics here. Just like you can have a dip here, a big drop that's unexpected, like that, we need to be ready as we continue our journey up to see changes around us. So in the summer of 2021, we could say that all bubbles burst. Markets, whether it's stock markets or housing prices, cannot continually grow in double-digit fashion as they have done when the real economic growth rates do not warrant it. And as we get closer to our goal here, we're coming on to third ledge, we want to make sure we can get there by allowing for the times that we live in. Our governments have supported economic recoveries currently in 20 and 21 from COVID, and in the recent past, 2008, 2009 near financial meltdown by using more debt and printing more money. Economic history has shown that recessions and collapses come from bubbles. There are few negative signs that can be predicted. They also offer opportunities if you are prepared to stay invested. And that's where a financial advisor, even a robo advisor, will keep you invested in the market. Hang in there, have some liquid funds as you have been saving that are available, cash reserves, so that when there's a drop in the market, you can buy things. When the market drops, things are on sale. Everybody likes to get something on sale, and that's really what happens. So major investors like Warren Buffett and any kind of investment fund are looking for buying opportunities. So you should see those kind of situations and be able to plan and look for that. In our current economic situation, we are looking at cases with the government finances that we will be looking at higher taxes, a higher interest rate that we'll pay, and inflation that will continue. So you can help your cause by making sure that as you get towards your goal here, looking at retirement, as Carl is on third ledge, we can look for investment counsel that will help us ride out those rocky times. Have your emergency fund. Make sure you have some liquid reserves, some cash reserves that will allow you to ride out rocky times, but also keep you invested in stock markets and in equity investment. Gains can be harvested or sold of shares that have increased greatly in bull markets, so that you can then replenish your stock of liquidity, or buy other shares that are at a lower price when there are corrections. So it's important to be ready for market drops, stay invested, sell when prices are at new highs or on unsustainable growth rates that are fueled by speculation. So just like our hike to third ledge has been a parity, our financial hike to retirement includes these many aspects of planning and reviewing that regularly, and saving and investing. So now we've gotten to a point where we're reaching closer to retirement on our journey, but our financial journey is not complete. If we want to enjoy these vistas, if we want to enjoy good retirement, we cannot think that we don't need to be concerned about our finances. Most people are aware that if they live for 20 or 30 years in retirement, which usually that's what it means, we want our wealth to continue for that time so we can enjoy that space of time. If we have invested to grow our investments, we should also be prepared, as we have invested, to divest ourselves of that accumulated wealth. So just like climbing down from third ledge, climb down from our just as we've had an outlook, we can run into problems of slips and falls if we're not careful. So we still need to watch our financial steps as we use our wealth. So as retirement goes for 20 or 30 years, we need to prepare a retirement budget that will allow us to enjoy thinking even to further heights as you consider to other ledges above third ledge. Here's fourth ledge and further to the top of the mountain. Have a retirement budget that allows for your goals, for travel or other events in your retirement. Keep your eye on your cash flow. Live within your income so you don't take on large and burdensome debt. Keep your eye on other goals you may have to enjoy retirement, which may not include a lot of expenditures. Keep your investments growing by keeping enough funds in equities so that the effect of inflation over time doesn't eat up your buying power. Again, inflation at 2% will decrease your fixed amount of principal buying power by 40 to 45% over 20 years. With government deficits, higher taxes and inflation are going to come. So you need to have financial awareness really continually, lifelong. You should plan on getting additional counsel and decision-making help as you age. Most people will find a trusted financial advisor is important, and a trusted arm's-length friend can greatly give you perspective for you and for your family members as you need more care and loving patience. Adjustments to your will should be made while you have good cognizance. In other words, you know what's going on. Discussions with family should allow you to make your final wishes known as directions to your executor for distributing your financial, real, and commemorative assets. By not letting your immediate family know what your choices are, you can create misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and may cause a contesting of the distribution of your assets. So it's not a good lasting legacy. And as Carl is pointing here from third ledge, you want to keep following on a path that God would direct you for. So seek God's counsel on that, of which way you should go. Have direct discussions with your family so they know your wishes. And when you think about the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 and Luke 19, remember God's work. This is your last accounting for your stewardship. You should also, besides a will, which we've mentioned before, which will determine the distribution of your financial assets, you should also be having a living will, which is a legal document that provides for advanced healthcare direction, which will specify the medical care and comfort actions that you desire, that once you are not able to make those decisions for yourself. So you really should consider talking to a lawyer, particularly a lawyer with estate experience, so that you can make your final will, your living will, and your power of attorney decisions to cover for various scenarios which may arise as you age. Your local conference, and these can be surmounting big hurdles like you see climbing up the cliff here, but these can be hurdles that you can find a path that people have gone on before. So if you're in contact with your local conference or church organization, they will have a stewardship department that can give you advice on wills and estate planning. The use of trusts and annuities will allow you to have a designated trustee to control the release of your financial assets after your passing, if this is a concern for you, for minors, or for the financial management skills of your beneficiaries. And the stewardship department will give you good counsel and good help in following a path there to other ledges. Like this is, I think, fourth ledge above our third ledge goal that we've climbed to. So as we follow this path in the finalization of our financial plans, I want to thank you for watching here. And may we as believers use our financial means as well as our talents to honor our Lord and Savior throughout our life, so that we can look forward to that day when Jesus will say to us, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Thank you for watching.